Welcome to the Customer Wins podcast, where business leaders discuss their secrets and techniques for helping their customers succeed and in turn grow their business.
Hey, I'm Rich Walker, the host of the Customer Wins, where I talk to business leaders about how they help their customers win and how their focus on customer experience leads to growth. Some of my past guests have included Tom Singer, the CEO of Austin Technology Council, and Shelly Taylor, the CEO of Alamo Drafthouse. Today, I get to speak with Austin Netzley, the CEO of 2X. And today's episode is brought to you by Quick, the leader in enterprise forms automation. When the last step to earning your client's business requires filling out paperwork, don't ruin a good relationship with a bad experience. Instead, get Quick Forms to make filling out forms a great experience and the easiest part of your transaction. Visit quickforms.com to get started. Before I introduce our guest, I want to also give a big shout out to Eric Berman, the CEO of Branditize, who actually made it possible for Austin and I to meet. Now, Austin Netzley is an author, investor, and business growth advisor. He's the founder and CEO of 2X, which helps 6- and 7-figure businesses scale exponentially through operational excellence. There's going to be a lot of people who want to hear this. In less than 3 years, Austin and 2X have helped private clients generate over $255 million in revenue by implementing the proven 2X operating system. Austin is also the author of a new updated book, From 6 to 7 Figures. If you're on video, you can see it, and has been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur, Inc., and many, many other publications. Austin, welcome to the Customer Wins.
Rich, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. And just from the first time that we connected, you were giving value, you were leading with supporting, and it's no surprise that your podcast is called The Customer Wins, because I could see the value that you give and the way that you lead. So super excited to be here, super excited to see what type of value and where the conversation goes today.
Yeah, thank you, Austin. I'm super excited to have you here. Now, if you haven't heard this podcast before, I talk to business leaders about what they're doing to help their customers win, how they built and deliver a great customer experience, something I really am passionate about, as you said, and the challenges to growing their own company, which is what you talk about. So I'm super excited to have people hear what you say. So Austin, let's understand your business a little bit better. How does your company 2X help people?
Yeah, so we do one-on-one business coaching. We work with 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs all over the globe to help get into their business, to help simplify, systemize, and scale. So most small business owners are pulled in 100 different directions. They're focused oftentimes on the wrong things. So we come in, help them see exactly what the best business model and strategy is to be set up to scale, help get them free from the weeds, help improve their operations to get them focused on the right things. Now they've got a much better, healthier business. They're clear on where they need to go. They've got a lot more time. They're getting way more out of their team and operations, and now we're ready to focus on growth. And if we put all that together, we're able to drive consistent, predictable growth to the next level, help entrepreneurs achieve why they started in business to begin with, because we started business to achieve freedom and growth and some wealth, but like few entrepreneurs get any of those things, let alone all those things. But if you do it right, you can live an amazing life and make a big impact and make good money and have an awesome business along the way. So we try to put it all together with one-on-one business coaching through a strategic approach and through operational excellence.
Man, there's so much in there. That is awesome. But one of the questions that comes to mind is, I've been an entrepreneur since age 12. I've started 10 different companies. My company is in year 22 of business. But when does your entrepreneur customer figure out they need you? Like, what is the light that clicks in their head? They're like, I need help.
Yep. At some point, almost every entrepreneur deals with this, and I'm sure that you've dealt with it, Rich. I know I have multiple times, is at some point, an entrepreneur hits the wall and they realize there has to be a better, simpler way of doing things, right? Like, it's just like there's too much overwhelm. They're not making progress. They get stuck in the weeds and just not growing. And it feels like we hit this glass ceiling. And after hitting our head against the wall or the glass ceiling enough times, we ultimately realize there has to be a better way to do this, or I'm doing things the wrong way, or I know I'm smart, I know I'm successful, I know I can do things. I see other people around me that seemingly make it look easier or thriving or is way more successful. I know I can be them. What is different, right? And we just hit this, and then we go on the search to figure out what is that way. And we realize, oh, there are other approaches. There are things that I'm not doing, and I need some help ultimately. But ultimately coming to that realization of there has to be a better, simpler way. When people are hitting that interest, we show them that better, simpler way.
Yeah, no, that's a tough thing. I mean, when I started my business for the first 4 years, I didn't make enough money to pay rent. I mean, it was kind of
Mm,
crazy. And I kept saying, this was supposed to be easy. I thought we were
yeah.
going to just in first year, kick it off and get thousands of users paying us money. It'd be great. We got 6 users in our first year.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just one of those catalyst moments. I mean, it takes a lot of introspection for somebody to say, I need help, and then seek out a company like you. So who's your typical customer? What stage are they in, do you think?
Yes, they're a small business owner, usually between 500K and 5 million in revenue. Most of the companies that we work with are service-based of some kind. Now that could mean anything from a digital marketing agency to a service professional to a staffing firm to a online high-ticket coach. So we do have a broad range within the service realm, but they're an online service-based business that's usually between 500K and 5 million in revenue. They have anywhere between 5 and 25 people on their team. So they ultimately get to that first level of success, but things are still too reliant on them. They don't have operational excellence. And as a result, they just hit the ceiling. Then we come in and help break that.
So it sounds like you have personal experience with this. What got you on
Yeah.
this path? What made you say, I want to do 2X and help others achieve this goal?
Yeah, great question. So I started out as a mechanical engineer, and I had this big vision as an 18-year-old of I was going to get my engineering degree. I was going to go then and get some sales experience and knock the nerd off of me and just like be comfortable talking with people. And then I was going to go get my MBA, and those three things were going to be my trifecta that was going to take me up the corporate ladder and be the CEO of a big large corporation. So I started down that path. I went and worked for a big oil company. I was in a management development program where they put you in different roles. We put engineers in different roles, and it was great. It's exactly as I wanted to do. I was learning different things. I knew I didn't want to do any technical engineering, but I knew I wanted that as like a fundamental thing, as a difficult thing to understand, so that I would have a good base as a business leader in the future. But I started on that path, and I realized, wait a minute, there's nobody that's a manager multiple levels above me that I'm jealous of. Like that's not the path that I want. And then I started to learn about this thing called entrepreneurship. So I started my first business on the side while still working full time. I created my own algorithm. I got into day trading, created my own algorithm, and automated it and built that up. And that was my first business. But I didn't have any people on my team. I didn't really feel like a business. It's just me and the machine. But that ultimately got me that first level of success and financial freedom. And then from there, I burnt myself out. So it was still stressful, even though I had my own algorithm and automated it. But I was doing both things. I wasn't taking care of my health. I was partying a lot and burnt myself out. So I took off for 18 months and just traveled around the world and just took some time. And it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. And then I knew when I came back, I wanted to do something that was contribution focused, because working for an oil company and day trading, those didn't have any contribution element. Like I didn't feel like I was making the world better by doing those, right? So I was like, all right, I'm going to do something. Then that led to a blog and podcast that was talking about money and the mindset and investing and some of the things that I learned for young professionals to teach them, because they don't teach that in school. And that led to a book that had some good success from a small platform, that led to a book marketing agency, that led to coaching entrepreneurs how to scale, that led to what we do now. So it's all been like a stepping stone to have my own businesses and to help get access to hundreds and hundreds and now over 1,000 6 and 7-figure businesses, that we could see very directly what works and what doesn't, and start to connect the dots for people and then put it together into a full step-by-step approach to get a lot more traction a lot more easily. So again, with our differentiator being not only our strategic approach, but really operational excellence. Because I think for so many 6 and 7-figure businesses, your operations ultimately comes your limiting factor, because without it, you can't fully get free from the weeds. Your team's not set up for success. You're not producing the profitability and cash flow that you need. But if you have it, again, growth becomes much more easily and much more consistent from there. So that's a long-winded way to say how we got to this.
So Austin, something you said really sparked me, which was very early on. I think you said you were looking up the chain in your company and not being jealous of anybody. Is that what you said?
Yeah. I mean, it was like they were working a lot. Most of them were overweight. Most of them didn't have amazing family or relationships with their spouse. And I was like, wait, is this what I'm like working hard for? Is this what I want to be? Is that where I want to be in 20 years? And then I started to learn about entrepreneurship through some books, and it just opened up this whole new world. Because when I was growing up, I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. I knew one entrepreneur and he wasn't really successful, but like all I thought about and all my family thought about was you go the corporate ladder, or you go the safe route, you go and you get a salaried position, and like that's what you do. And it just like blew my mind at 23, 24 as I started to learn, wait, there's another path that you can more so design what you want.
Yeah, no, I love that. And because you need that fire, you need something that says, I got to go build a company. I got to do something. And I
Yep.
love that. I've never heard that before. Like, I don't aspire to anything here. I got to go find somewhere where I aspire to be.
Yeah.
And so you're helping lots of other entrepreneurs, right? I mean, you're helping them move that needle for them.
Yep.
What is one of your favorite customer success stories that you can think of?
Yeah. I mean, we've got so many, but the first one that comes to mind is one of our clients, John Murphy. He came in and he was working 100 to 110 hours a week, 100 to 110 hours a week, and he just broke down. Like after doing that, he built a pretty successful business to that first level of success. He was $67,000 per month, had a very small team, but he was working so much, and everything was built like reliant on him. That's what he learned. He learned like, hey, these things are reliant on me, so I'm just going to work more hours until he ultimately broke. And he was ultimately sitting down for breakfast with his wife, and he just started crying in his cereal. And he realized, all right, there has to be a different way to do this. As I mentioned earlier, a better, simpler way. And then he came out and he found us. And within 4 months, he went from 110 hours per week down to 10 hours per week. And then a couple months later, he had gone from $67,000 per month to over $503,000 per month. So I think that's, more than 7x growth while working 100 hours less per week. And he didn't know what to then do with his time. So then he went and started a couple other businesses and other things as well, and totally transformed. And we're talking in a period of months. So the way that we did that is to come in, help him see what mattered in his business and what didn't. So really on the strategy and model first and foremost, then building operational excellence so that he was getting free from the weeds, that his team was set up for success, that he was replacing himself with a couple admin type roles that he was spending dozens of hours on per week. And we ultimately fired him and removed him from that so that he could then focus on growth. And if you do that, where you've got a scalable model, you've got the team set up for success, you've got operational excellence, and you focus on a couple growth levers, it's easy to get to the next level from there. And that's exactly what he did. So that's one of my favorite ones. And to see what that then led to for him to then go and help his family, go and help his brother, go and help his mom in a big way. Like, that's when it came full circle. And we just really feel the impact that we were making. That's just one example,
Oh man, I love that story. So I have to ask a different question now, because I know a lot of people who listen to my podcast are small business operators, financial advisors, for example. And as an entrepreneur, one of the hardest things to do is give up control. If you go from 100 hours a week to 10 hours a week, you're giving up control. You're delegating. There's no other way to do it, right?
Yep.
And obviously you have a process for helping figure that out, but how do you get over the mindset of giving up that control? And then the second part to the question is, how do you consistently still deliver an excellent customer experience having given up that control?
Yep, great question. The biggest and most important thing is the mindset, right? It's like we have to change the mindset. And the reason why that's the biggest and most important thing is because it's the hardest thing to do. So the way that we do that is very strategically and intentionally. First and foremost, what we need to do is get you recentered on what do you want, right? Like so many times entrepreneurs, we forget why we started in a business or what we want to achieve. We don't have like a real clear destination, but you don't get into your car until you know where you're going. But we're working so hard driving our business forward, and we forget what success really is. We're just trying to grow. But most of the time, we're just trying to grow for growth's sake. And like we get ultimately lost in the day-to-day of our business and are just going through the motions. So what we do first and foremost is we need to understand, what is success? What do you want? Because we can design the strategy and model and your approach and your time and your team, like everything from helping you get from where you're at to where you want to be, but we've got to know where you want to be, right? So that's the first thing, is like go back to the drawing board and say, hey, what do I really want? And like, how much do I want to be working in? What do I want to be spending my time on? And what type of people do I want to have in my life? Like all the vision type things is talked about a little bit, but it's not really anchored in. Like most people, we just get lost in, I need to do all these different things, and I've got clients and I've got bills and I've got all these things. No, let's go back and understand the vision first and foremost. Because if you're really clear on the vision, you can see what helps you get there and what doesn't. You can see what the simplest and most direct path. You can make better decisions. So that's the first thing. The second is then the best way to start to free up capacity and time and to start to let go is to simply cut things out. So when we come into a business, we identify usually between 20 and 60% of what they are working on is not really producing much of any results. All right.
Wow. That's a big number.
It's a huge number. So the 80-20 rule is real, right? Like, and we've probably seen this of like 20% of our inputs lead to 80% of our outputs. So if that's true, which we think it is, right? We see it over and over again every day. But that means the inverse of that is true as well. That means 80% of what we're spending our time, energy, and effort and resources on is only producing about 20% of the results. So if we identify what that 20% is and focus more on that, we're going to get a lot more results. If we focus on that 80% and reduce that down or cut that out or delegate it off, then we're going to be able to focus more on the 20% that's actually producing. So just using this quick example, this is a little bit confusing without kind of drawing it, but let's say that we take this kind of fully in stride and really lean into this. So let's say that we identify what the 20% of the highest impact activities that you can do are. If we then identify the 80% and completely get rid of that by either delegating, systemizing, or completely cutting out those particular things, and we focus like on replacing some of that with another 20%, that means you're basically working 40% of what you did. But if it's producing 80%, then that's producing 160%. 80% plus 80% is 160%. So that means you can work 3 days less while producing 60% more if you understand that math, right? So like that's just an example.
Well, that's exactly that was just the example you used with your client, right? I mean, they went 90% less hours for 7x times the revenue effectively over time.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
One of the things that you're saying, sorry to interrupt, but going back, like when you talk about vision, the reason we started our businesses, like I just interviewed Justin Crane Financial Solutions, and he's achieved this because he's at a stage where he has enough clients. He doesn't want more clients. He'll replace a client with a new client, but he's not trying to grow to twice as many clients because he's found his purpose. He's found what's meaningful to him, and he's helping his clients do that. And he's becoming more and more successful as a result of having that narrow focus. And that, of course, means less clients. You're freeing up time, right?
Yeah.
So I'm also thinking that when you have that set, that is when you can sit down and design. So the second part you're talking about is designing how you're going to achieve that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then kind of continuing on with that. So we got to get focused on the right things and duplicate that. But then the next best way to free up capacity is to cut things out. Because it's one thing to delegate something else, but like, is it really impactful? Is it really essential? So if you can just cut something out, that means that your team is not going to have that on their plate. So that means they're going to free up capacity as well. And those are some of the hard decisions that you can do. So when we come in, again, what I mentioned is at least 20 to 60% of what people are working on isn't really that impactful. So we're looking at least 20% that we can either cut out or pause or reevaluate in 90 days. And guess what happens? If we say, hey, let's not focus on it now, but let's come back to it in 90 days. If it's not important now, 99% of the time, it's not that important in 90 days, right? So if we can just cut things out and identify what to stop doing. So for instance, let's look at any particular example. Marketing. Most people have 7 different marketing channels, 2 of which are actually really producing, and they're spending so much time and effort on the others. And it's like, wait a minute, if we really focus on the customer journey and the exact person that we want to duplicate over and over, and we look at those particular 2 channels and we turn those into just complete machines that are running, thriving, growing without you, and just focus on that, we're going to produce way more profitably and with way less moving pieces. So like that's one thing where we can cut out a lot of moving pieces, a lot of distraction, and just focus on getting a lot better results. That's just one area. Same thing across every other part of the business as we're looking to simplify first and foremost. So that's the best form. And then the next best way is to build it up over time. So we start with the easiest, lowest value things to get off. So an assistant. If you don't have an assistant, as Cameron Herold, the author says, you are the assistant, right? So we look at offloading the easiest things, and that starts to show you that, hey, it actually works to be able to delegate. And then if you start to leverage systems, we could go into some proper ways to delegate. But if you do that and you actually set them up for success, then they're going to start to produce things. So we look at cutting things out. We then look at starting with the easiest things. That creates a lot of capacity, and then start to leverage systems for other things. And we eventually get to freeing up 20, 30, 40 hours a week for our clients left and right, actually.
Wow. So get the mindset that you're in business and you want to grow the business. Get the mindset of the focus of why you wanted to do this, which was not to work yourself to death, to have that corporate job, for example. Sit there and design the way that you're going to do it. And then I love these techniques. I'm going to share a secret with you. And this is contrary to how we provide customer success with our customers. It's going to sound contrary. So first of all, I have this kind of rule. We need to respond to clients immediately as quickly as possible so they're not waiting. Like they're looking for answers, right?
Yep.
But I also know if you wait 30 minutes, 9 out of 10 clients figure it out for themselves and they no longer need the answer.
Yeah.
So if you answer, we won't answer every phone call that comes in, but if you answer every email the moment it comes in, you're missing an opportunity to help your client actually figure it out. And then their self-service is making them more empowered, but also it's relieving stress on your own team to have that kind of response time. Our average response time is around 25, 30 minutes still. That's why I say it sounds contrary. I'm not telling my team, ignore my customer, by no means.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of those examples of how you free up time on what's really important and still give a great customer experience.
Yeah, and I'll take it one step further. Like we do business coaching, right? So a lot of times people will be bringing their issues, their questions, their challenges to us. So many times we're answering the questions by asking them questions, right?
Right.
It is like if we can teach them, and then based on whoever figures out the solution or next step, then just asking the question is like, hey, what did you learn there? What would you do differently or whatever? Now we're anchoring it in that now they don't need to ask that question in the future, and now they understand it, or now they understand more of the nuances of things so that they have better ability to make the decisions going forward. Then the next piece of it is, let's say somebody emails you a particular question, you wait a little bit. Guess what? That question's probably come in some way, shape, or form in the past. Well, there could be a system for that of like, hey, here's how we solved that before. Here's a general fact. Here's the particular things. Like those are easy ways to do it. But systems will allow your team to better leverage themselves, to better leverage your time, yada yada. But systems are one of the keys that I think most businesses struggle with. But it's such a superpower if you get it right.
Yeah, being organized is hard, I think, for a lot of people, and then figure out what tool you're going to use to create the system in. So for example, we use Zendesk, and we will create posts in their help desk area for frequently asked questions or help articles. Anytime a question comes in twice, it's an article. Going forward, it's an article.
Perfect.
And it also adds into our chat system. So if somebody starts chatting with us and they ask a question, that article shows up in that answer.
Yep.
And so now they get more self-service, which again, alleviates time, but also serves the client better. Because I mean, come in, do you really want to talk to somebody if you don't have to? Wouldn't you just like to have the answer, right?
Yeah. And faster.
Yeah. So I mean, I love that you're doing this coaching, you're helping people grow. There's a topic that's really hot in my mind and a lot of technologists' mind, which is artificial intelligence. And I'm wondering how you see artificial intelligence playing a role in what you're doing or the impact it has on how you serve customers or how your customers serve customers. What's your view of AI right now?
My view is that AI is changing the game. I'm very much not an early adopter, but with AI, it is real. Like if you are ignoring it, you are potentially going to get left behind. I think it's a wild situation where yes, there's the forms of speed and automation and things, but the AI is now developing such customization and abilities to have not the human replacement, but like a much more intimate and personal touch that it doesn't feel as much like a robot as it did or as we viewed it in the past. So I think it's absolutely game changing. Like everybody from a role standpoint to a company standpoint is either going to be using and leveraging AI and keeping up or getting left behind is my view. And sure, there are some companies in different industries that it impacts it less. But I think everybody should be aware of it, be cognizant of it, be thinking about, hey, where are things going? Because the beauty of AI, at the speed of which it's developing, you can just dream up whatever you want to dream up from your business and customer experience standpoint and marketing and sales. And that's probably going to be possible if it's not already in the coming months. So I think it's really, really an important conversation to spend a small portion of your time, be thinking about, to be brainstorming, to be learning about, and to be keeping your finger on the pulse of. And then related to customer experience, I mean, again, it depends on the business, but there's so many different ways that it impacts the customer from a speed standpoint, a customization standpoint. You can train things to again, really be in your voice and different things that, again, I think it's a wild time that we're living in. As important, honestly, almost as the internet was, 30 or 20 something years ago.
No, this is the second coming of the internet in a way. Yeah. You had mentioned earlier, like if you don't have an assistant, you're an assistant yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I've been using ChatGPT to be a personal assistant of sorts. Like I don't have it book flights, but I've used it for brainstorming and thinking through problems and finding answers to things super fast. Are you recommending to your clients that they leverage AI to free up their time?
Yes, but the main thing goes back to having everybody on their team really leverage it to get more done there. So for instance, I still have an assistant, and I have her really learning and mastering AI so that she can double or triple her output. And because the things are still reliant on me. So ultimately what we're trying to do is not only offload tasks, which if you're using it directly, you still own the responsibility of the task. So what we're trying to do is actually, instead of just offloading tasks, is we're trying to offload responsibilities. So that's where you still have the free brain space to focus on the highest impact things. But usually, again, finding that top 20% of what a CEO or entrepreneur should be working on, it's usually going to need the AI from an assistant standpoint in a smaller capacity than your actual assistant would, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I've often thought that AI is not necessarily going to replace jobs. It's going to be people who've learned AI that will replace jobs. And it's become incumbent on you to learn how to use these tools better. In fact, I started this year and told every employee in my team, find an AI-driven tool that's going to make your job easier, better, faster. I don't care about 40 hours a week of work. I care about results and productivity. So yeah.
Yeah. And some people are afraid of it, but like you said, you got to lean into it, and you got to teach your team to lean into it as well. And think about how they can replace themselves, or leverage, their role. So I love that focus.
Yeah. And I think another thing to consider is I believe AI is going to take lower skilled workers to higher skilled jobs.
Yeah.
Because think about like financial analysis, the work that goes into doing the analysis or getting the data ready for analysis is so much just boring, dumb work that the AI could do. And now you can spend your time on understanding results and interpreting results and making strategic decisions on those results versus spending all your time putting data together.
Yeah, definitely. And that actually leads to a really important point, I think, which is so much of it goes back to what are we trying to achieve? So that's why the first question of business is where are we headed? Like, what's the goal? What's the success? What's the vision? Because from that, then we can see what matters and what doesn't. Because what I see a lot of people doing, whether we're talking about employees or entrepreneurs or businesses, is they're understanding the power of AI, but they don't really have a clear intention and use of it. And as a result, they're making more work than they need. If you understand kind of what I'm saying, is that we need to really understand like the intentionality. Like if you go in and you're like, this is a specific problem that I'm trying to solve, then it's an amazing accelerator to help have that happen. But a lot of people aren't super clear. And as a result, it's actually taking more time and more of a distraction than it's actually helping. So I think that intentionality and going back to the fundamental vision of where we want to go and the strategy and model of what we need to achieve to get there, like that leads into everything else, right?
Yeah. The fundamentals are important. The foundation, what is it you're trying to do? That's still paramount to everything else. Pardon me. Austin, as we wrap this up, I do have another question for you. But before I ask, I want people to connect with you. What's the best way for people to find you and connect with you?
You can go to our website, 2x.co. We've got a couple books. We've got from 6 to 7 figures, as you mentioned. We've got a new book coming out called the 2-Week Vacation Test. That's how to build your business to run and thrive without you, because so many entrepreneurs are stuck in the weeds. So definitely check one of those out. They're super low cost on Amazon, hopefully high value. And I think that will show a lot of what we do. So just look for from 6 to 7 figures or my name, Austin Netzley, and you can see that book as well as the 2-Week Vacation Test.
What's a 2-week vacation? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, again, we started in business for freedom. So what we say is like, one of the secrets to success is to build your business in such a way that it can run and thrive without you for 2 weeks. So if that's the case, then your business isn't reliant on you. Your team is clear in operating. Your operations are good and set to scale. And then now you're free from the weeds that now you can focus on the highest value things. Now, I lived the 4-hour work week, and honestly, it wasn't that fun. Like I want something that I want to like drive towards and grow. And I want people that I want to work with and I want to spend time on. But being stuck and having to work and having to do certain things, that's not fun. So if we can get your business to run and thrive without you, and then get you focused in your zone of genius and where you want to, you've got a very healthy, successful business. Your team is set up and thriving. You have time freedom, and now you can really scale to the next level. So it's actually, a really important piece of like what we do in our coaching program that we're not putting in a book.
Zone of genius. That is a perfect phrase. I love it. All right. So Austin, here's my last question. Who has had the biggest impact on your leadership style or how you approach your role?
Gosh, there's so many people. This is a really tough question. I would say the first one that comes to mind is my good buddy Chandler Bolt. I'm in the middle of finishing again that 2-week vacation test book, and he has a company that teaches people how to publish their books. So he's been a big resource and connection for me from a book standpoint, but I've known him for many years, and he's built a very successful 8-figure business. And I go to him as not only a best friend, but an advisor on so many business fronts that he's just like a rock, and he's like a couple steps ahead of me that I really lean on his guidance and support. So I appreciate him a ton. And he's going to be helping me more this weekend on some of the things. He doesn't know it yet, but he's going to be helping me more to guide me. So he's front and center for me.
That is awesome. Man, you cannot replace a good partner.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So, hey, I want to say thank you to Austin Netzley, CEO of 2X, for being on this episode of The Customer Wins. Go check out Austin's website at 2x.co. That's co. And don't forget to check out Quick at quickforms.com, where we take the work out of paperwork. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, this discussion. We'll click the like button, share it with somebody, even subscribe for future episodes of The Customer Wins. Austin, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rich. I love what you're doing. Keep it up, and I appreciate you very much, man.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Wins podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.